I'm getting high in the summertime, never hesitate to cop a dime. All the gang comes a lemon lime. I need to smoke, I got to get mine. I'm getting high in the summertime, chilling with my homies, feeling fine. Chilling with my highness, drinking wine. Tonight, I got to get mine.
You come from a pedigree of radicals, right?
Well, my parents were Reds, and they spent most of their life on the East Coast, and then about 1970 they went to the West Coast, and they got into organic farming and growing marijuana and being part of the counterculture in Northern California. My father got radicalized when he went to college, and he heard about there was a famous case at the time of two Italian immigrants named Sacco and Vanzetti, who were charged with bank robbery and murder, and it seemed like they were being framed. He was also, as a kid, he was wild. He was a kind of outlaw kid, and he grew up, he came of age near the end of Prohibition, and he got into Prohibition. There were boats with rum that would come up from the West Indies and anchor in the Long Island Sound, and then he would go out in a rowboat and fill his rowboat with these crates of rum and then row back, and he would borrow my grandfather's car, Buick, and put these cases of rum in the back in the trunk, and then drive to New York and deliver them to speakeasies. So he always said, and I remember as a kid he took me and my brothers to the place on the Sound where he used to row out there. He wanted us to see that place. And he'd always say that part of his going to law school, the money to go to law school, was from being a rum runner.
When did you first become aware of marijuana?
When I was in college. I knew that there were some people who had marijuana. I went to Columbia College, partially because the Beats had been there. Allen Ginsberg and Jack Kerouac went to Columbia. I knew about Howl and On the Road when I was a teenager, and so I played football. I wrote poetry. I knew that Kerouac wrote poetry and played football, and so he was like a real early role model. So there were some guys at Columbia who had marijuana. I didn't try it there. I didn't really smoke marijuana until I was about 25 years old. So when I came back to the States after 3 years in England, there were hippies. There hadn't been any hippies in New York, and I mean, suddenly there was people with long hair and tie-dyed T-shirts, and there was the whole Lower East Side scene. And my wife went to law school at Columbia, and she met somebody who, probably the person who was like the first head that I ever really knew, and he had been to the State University of New York at Buffalo, and was smoking dope. I think that's what he called it, and.
So this we're getting to your first marijuana experience now.
Yes, in New York in 1967, at my friend's apartment, and over there for brunch. Classic kind of New York brunch: bagels, cream cheese, lox,
and pie.
Yes. And then he said, well, we were high there, and he says, anybody, I've got some ice cream. Anybody want ice cream? And sure, I like some ice cream. So, and that was my first experience with some with food, and food, ice cream tasting different. And so there I was. My father died in '77. I had a lot of high quality marijuana. I knew a couple people who were dealers, but I wasn't really plugged into the sort of marijuana world. I was working on my book about B. Traven. I moved out of my father's house, and I'd get up in the morning and I'd smoke a joint and I'd go sit down at my typewriter and I'd work on the book, and I'd smoke pot all day and write. And I found the first time I really found that smoking pot helped me write, doing this book. So one day there's a knock on the door, and it says there's an apartment across the hallway, and the guy, I know he goes to the junior college close by, and he says, do you have any pot for sale? So I say to him, like putting on as like an incredulous face as possible, I say, what makes you think that I would have any pot? So he says this is like an apartment complex. He says this whole apartment complex reeks of marijuana. Everybody in this apartment complex knows you have marijuana. It's all the adjoining places. We all know that there's marijuana here. So I said, okay, he said, how much do you want? He said, a lid. All right, so I get a plastic bag, I fill it up, with pot, and I had never sold any pot, so how much do you want? $5. Okay, the guy is like, he's like astounded. Well, I think Marijuanaland, I would say that's what's good about it is it looks at marijuana from just about every possible perspective. It's got lawyers who defend people, it's got growers, it's got dealers, it's got law enforcement people, it's got doctors who recommend it, and it ends with me taking place in this sort of, I followed these two brothers who were growing a huge amount of pot, and went through the season with them and was there with them for the harvest, and they were making hash, so I had some great times with them at the very end with their harvest of harvesting the plants and then manicuring with them and helping to dry and bag. And after like a day of manicuring pot and smoking hash, I was like, it was inside me, it was all over me, and so it kind of ends on kind of like it's me and marijuana or one and the same.
Oh no, I'm getting high in the summertime, never hesitate to cop a dime. All the dank on the lemon lime, I need to smoke, I got to get mine. I'm getting high in the summertime, chilling with my homie, feeling fine. Chilling with my highness, drinking wine. Tonight, I got to get mine.